Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure, I believe, to welcome back to the program Ben Wikler, the chairman of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It is a living the dream, fighting the nightmare. That's what I would say about how.
Yes, well, I'm glad to hear at least it's you're living the dream, as it were. It's good to see you. Let's start with this race that is coming up in less than 2 weeks. It is really key one. I feel like, certainly for the duration of this iteration of my show, and I should say, just full disclosure, we knew each other back in the Air America days when you were producing there, and you came in and gave me some advice on this show probably 10, 12 years ago, I think it was, 14 years ago maybe. But this show has, I could mark it, when I mark it in my head, about the fights that we have seen in Wisconsin over the course of the past 14 years. You had Scott Walker, who basically unleashed the Koch brother experiment that in many ways attempted to sweep the nation, and it has in some respects in terms of like busting unions and attacking Medicaid there. And Wisconsin, though, over the past 7, 8 years, and I know at least you deserve at least a chunk of that credit, but of course, I think a lot of Wisconsinites do, has been fighting back, has reversed things like the gerrymander there, has taken back power in your state, and a big pivot point for that has been the Supreme Court. Tell us about that history, and then let's talk about this race.
Absolutely. So Wisconsin experienced a kind of micro version of what the whole country is experiencing right now, which is Republicans sweeping in, taking trifecta control, and then immediately setting about trying to smash the basis of the progressive movement, democratic strength, worker power, clean and effective government. What Scott Walker did when he came in, he said on the basis of a trumped up budget crisis that they needed to smash collective bargaining for public sector employees. That was Act 10, 100,000 people protesting outside the state capitol. At the same time, they gerrymandered our maps to high heaven, locking in conservative majorities from Congress to the state legislature. They passed voter suppression laws that had a massive, terrible effect on especially young voters and black voters, which was the intent, as a whistleblower later revealed. It was a full court press. And then within government agencies, they were throwing out the nonpartisan civil servants. They were clamping down on the use of any language. They said the Department of Natural Resources couldn't mention climate change, for example. It was all this stuff that we're kind of seeing now with Trump and Musk. And it almost worked to break democracy in the state. They had a hammerlock for years. And this was all in part because our state Supreme Court rubber stamped a whole bunch of illegal laws. There was a Supreme Court race in the spring of 2011. The more progressive candidate who would have tipped the majority to pro-democracy justices lost by less than half a percentage point. And so they had a state Supreme Court majority for 15 years that they used to just support whatever it was that Scott Walker and Republicans wanted to do. I moved home in 2018. I got to volunteer for Governor Tony Evers, who won that year by 1.1 point, which in Wisconsin we call a landslide because it's more than 1 point. Attorney General Scott Call beat a terrible Republican Attorney General who'd been part of this whole machine attacking everything good. His name was Brad Schimmel. We Democrats swept every statewide election that year. And then in 2019, I was elected chair. While I was running for chair, there was another Supreme Court race that we lost again by less than half a percentage point. So these Supreme Court races have been critical. And I made fighting in these Supreme Court races a top priority for me and for our work at the party, alongside this amazing, the folks who've been on the ground year over year, from candidates to grassroots activists and organizers to our partners and friends in the union movement, so many folks. Spring of 2020, we won a double-digit landslide in a race that seemed potentially lost because it was the first election during the COVID pandemic, and Republicans insisted on going forward, even though in Milwaukee, out of 168 polling locations, only 5 were open on election day because so many poll workers had dropped out because of COVID. And that sort of sparked the rush that we've had since then. We we won the 2020 presidential by a hair's breadth, 0.7 of a point. In 2022, we, for the first time in more than 60 years, we won a governor's race when there was a Democratic president in the White House and prevented a Republican supermajority. 2023, we finally won the state Supreme Court majority, another blowout. And now, and then the state Supreme Court, I should say, they struck down the gerrymandered maps, but only after Republicans tried to impeach our Supreme Court justice before she could start doing her job to prevent her from ruling on whether the maps were constitutional. And we managed to fight and organize and push that back. So the Supreme Court has really transformed our politics in the state by reading the Constitution before approving any set of maps. And we now have fair maps in our state legislature. We still have gerrymandered congressional maps because those have not been adjudicated yet. But in this race now, Brad Schimmel, the guy who Josh Collar, Attorney General, beat in 2018, he's running to become a kind of ultra hyper mega Supreme Court justice. And if he wins, it's an open seat now, retiring progressive justice. This will determine the majority on the court. So this is like a race that will either pull us straight backwards into hyper gerrymandered state legislative races, attacks on voting rights from the Supreme Court. He has said that Trump keeps losing in the courts and we need a support network. And the only way we can stop that is through the courts. Brad Schimmel, he's like running to be Trump's MAGA warrior in Wisconsin, potentially overturn elections. And on our side, we have Susan Crawford, who, let me put it this way. There was a case called Planned Parenthood versus Brad Schimmel. Brad Schimmel said he was honored to be named in that case. The lawyer in that case for Planned Parenthood was Susan Crawford, who is the candidate that I'm supporting and Democrats are supporting for Wisconsin Supreme Court. So it's like freedom, democracy, justice, fairness, versus MAGA Musk on the other side. And that is coming up in 13 days.
We should say that these races are technically nonpartisan, but it's quite clear who the progressive justice is and who or would be, and who the right-wing reactionary justice would be. There are 2 points that I think your story makes clear. One is that it is a mistake to presume that Trump ushered in a lot of this because it existed when Donald Trump was still receiving and having pizza with Mitt Romney when he was running. I mean, all of this stuff is sort of like part and parcel of a right-wing, ultra-conservative movement. And then the second thing is how important a race like this is. I mean, people pay attention to Senate races and House races and governor races and state senator races, but this race will determine the nature of the playing field that all those other races take place on.
That is 1,000% right. And to put this in vivid context, Wisconsin is the only case where the Supreme Court seriously entertained overturning the 2020 presidential race. And it came within a single vote. It was a 4-3 vote on our state Supreme Court. They would have thrown out hundreds of thousands of ballots just in the two biggest Democratic counties, Dane County and Milwaukee County, if the Republicans had gotten their way. And if Brad Schimmel gets the deciding vote on our state Supreme Court, then we have serious risk of like serious election sabotage. On top of that, it was the Supreme Court that put the gerrymandered maps into place in 2022. They basically overrode the governor's veto and just chose the maps proposed by the Republicans. It was the Supreme Court that banned drop boxes in Wisconsin. Like when the MAGA had the majority there, they just put their thumb on the scale, and that affects the House majority in 26 and 28, the Senate majority. We have Senate races in 28 and 30, presidential election, voting rights and certification in 2028. Not only that, the next 5 state Supreme Court races could very easily be justices who've been elected running for re-election. And no justice who's been elected running for re-election is lost in the last half century. This is an open seat this year. So whoever wins this year might control the majority through the 2030 redistricting cycle, meaning congressional maps, the House majority, the state legislative majorities could be determined through 2042 by what happens in the next 15 days. And these races, Republicans saw long ago that they were critical and flooded in money. Our side now is fighting finally with fire, but we have a huge battle ahead of us in these next 2 weeks.
My understanding is that Elon Musk has dumped about what is it, like $10 million into the, what is the money situation here is nuts. And I've also read that he's like deploying some of the tactics that he used in electing Trump by creating fake progressive groups Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this is Elon Musk's first big fight since the 2024 election. And he has now put in, as of this moment, from what we can track, $13.2 million into helping Brad Schimmel get elected.
A state Supreme Court race. That's a lot of money.
Yes. So he's put in more money than, as far as we can tell, any donor has ever put into any judicial election in American history into this race. And he is running TV ads that are all like, crime, 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 general kind of fear-mongering. For stuff targeted to Republicans, has hired canvassers to go door to door with flyers, which I can grab one out of my bag, that show Trump and say Trump is winning for America, but liberal judges are trying to stop him. Elect Brad Schimmel to advance Trump's agenda. It is completely straightforward. Like, he will do whatever Trump wants, and he's trying to rile up the mega base. But then he's done this third thing, which is set up a cutout organization called Progress 2028, which the same group, this is the group that last year ran ads to Jews saying that Harris supported Palestine and Palestinians saying Harris supported Israel. And that same group is running ads targeted to hardcore right-wingers saying that Susan Crawford is like a big criminal justice reform person and is our liberal champion, and support, tell her thank you for being, liberal in crime. And it is just a way of getting Republicans to turn out. Now, it is illegal to run a front group that doesn't file with the disclosure, with the Wisconsin Elections Commission. They've done that anyway. But I think he thinks that if he controls the state Supreme Court, he can evade any penalty. Now, remember that the U.S. president cannot pardon people for committing crimes that are convicted in state court. But if he owns the state court, then there's no accountability there either. So he's trying to knock out, the last bastion of any kind of accountability in our justice system.
Where have I heard that dynamic? If Trump doesn't win, I could go to jail. I mean, that he literally told that to Tucker Carlson. All right. So, Ben, what obviously anybody who's listening to this or watching this, living in Wisconsin, they got to go and vote. And what is the registration? They need to be registered by now to vote in this election?
Well, this is our one good voting law, which is because Republicans realized that if they abolish this, they'd have to comply with other federal voting laws they have a waiver from. But our one good voting law is we have same-day voter registration. So if you are in Wisconsin right now and you've been here for 28 days and don't intend to leave, you can go to the polls. You can early vote if you go to wisdems.org/vote or vote.wisdems.org. Take your pick. You can find a map. We compile the only map of early voting locations through our state party. And you can register and cast a ballot today. Early vote is open right now. So this is go time. The path for us to win this is through every Majority Report viewers and listeners and fans telling everyone they know to go and cast a ballot, and doing that, multiplying that over every channel that we have to reach people who believe in freedom, justice, democracy. We haven't even talked about the abortion bans and all the stuff that could come into place if Schimmel wins, but we can win this because our side is more pissed off than their side. Yep. So we're going to be outspent, but we could turn out Republicans in this race. And if we do, not only can we win, we can also show the whole country that Elon Musk can't just buy whatever outcome he wants. And that can embolden Democrats to fight back and make Republicans think twice about walking the plank with him as he attacks Social Security and Veterans Administration and cancer research and everything else he's going after. So anyone watching, you can volunteer. If you go to wisdems.org/volunteer, you can vote. You can recruit other people to vote. You can donate. We can definitely use the contribution. We also have a website called peoplevmusk.org where you can see our ads going after Elon Musk for his role in the race. We're trying to turn this into both a choice between Susan Crawford, who's our amazing candidate, and Brad Schimmel, and also a national referendum on whether Musk gets to just call the shots in every election. Most people want him to lose this election. And if we turn that into votes, we're going to win, and we're going to say something powerful about our ability to put people power over the power of organized money in this country.
And I think you cannot overstate the message. I mean, this alone won't do it, but the message that, like, look, if you get associated with what's going on in Washington, D.C., you're going to lose is the sadly, and we'll talk about this with Ezra Levin, but that's the only strategy we have right now based upon what Schumer has done in terms of giving up our leverage. But if people see in Wisconsin that people are going to lose if they are tied to Musk and Trump, it is one sort of like data point that one of these Republican lawmakers is going to be thinking about. Are there, if I go to these sites, and we'll put all of these in our podcast and YouTube description, make sure that your folks send it to us if we've missed one. Can people also make calls from out of state?
Yes, we have daily phone banks running right now. So you can sign up, and these are fun calls. You're not calling kind of like 1 foot in MAGA swing voters. You're calling people who are Democrats who don't know about this election yet. And people will thank you for telling them about it and telling them that there's same-day registration and that they can go and vote. These are very satisfying calls to be part of. You can also join phone banks to call volunteers and ask them to go knock on doors, so you can have a multiplier effect that way. You can go to westdems.org/call, and you can find links to all that stuff, which will I know you'll put in the show notes and links to this. We have tons of ways for people to be able to get involved in this fight, and like, it'll be a collective victory. Right now, we've seen more than twice as much volunteer energized energy going out, more than twice as many door knocks, more than twice as many phone calls, more than like 4 times as many friend-to-friend relational voter contacts. There's such a huge push coming from the ground up. And if we can show that all of that is enough to beat Elon Musk, and the second biggest donors in the race are Dick and Liz Uline, who funded Stop the Steal, the formerly biggest Republican donors in the country. If we can beat all of them, then we can win anywhere. This is the 50-50 state of Wisconsin, the closest state in the country, and we're being outspent. And if we win this election, my hope is it'll inspire people to run for office and to fight harder if they have office and to get involved in this fight, because all hope, in my belief, is not lost. We still have enough of a democracy left that we can fight back and we can win.
This is great. For people who have been feeling helpless and they can't do anything, take a half an hour, make a bunch of calls. Again, this is not a persuasion election. This is a mobilization election. And you're going to be talking to people who are, instead of hanging up on you, are going to get into a fight with you, are going to go like, thank you for reminding me. Oh, I didn't know this. I'm going to go tell my folks. It is going to be fun. And it's a great way to deal with that frustration that I think a lot of people and frankly, depression that people have been feeling. You have the power to actually influence this election, because this isn't, you don't get a ton of people coming out for an election in, April for a Supreme Court. Ben, I wish you the best of luck. I know you got a lot of work to do, so get to it, and hopefully you guys will see a surge of people over the next 24 hours, because I know there's a lot of people out there who want to do stuff, and this is a perfect way, if you've been feeling disempowered, to feel like you've got a little power back right now. Ben, thanks again.
Thanks so much, Sam. Thanks, Emma. Grateful to be with you.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.